this video, we're going to go over starting a totally brand new template. So I'm going to click the drop down next to New and Browse Templates. From here, I'm going to select the template named AutoCAD. Now, when we create a template, we're only ever going to have one template, and we're going to have all of our drawings pull information from that template. But it's really, really important that it's 100% correct before you start working. So I'm going to start by setting up my layer properties. So again, I'm going to set up my layer properties. Now, if you look in your layer properties, the 0 layer is the default layer for AutoCAD. If I open these up a little bit, you can see if the layer's on. I'll show you why we might turn a layer on or off. If it's frozen, meaning you can't see it, blocked, you can't change it, whether we want it to plot or print, its color, its line type, and its line weight. Something else, you want to make sure your viewport freeze it has a sun. Otherwise you won't be able to see it when we set our viewport in our layout 1 tab. To create a layer, you're going to use this new layer button. It looks like sheets of paper with a sun, but we can create a new layer with a frozen viewport. We don't want to use that. We can delete a layer and we can set to current. Now, while I do this, it's a good time to open up the screenshot of our layer, so that way if you can't see what I'm typing or setting it to, you still have that. So our first layer, and I changed it, rename, is going to be our border layer. Our border layer is going to be on. It is going to not be frozen, it's not going to be locked, it's going to print. We're going to leave it at white. When I refer to white, it's this index color 7. That's what's going to allow you to see it as white in our model space. It'll appear black in our paper space, and when it prints, it'll be a black color. My border is going to be a continuous line. I'm going to show you. There are lots of options for styles of lines. We're going to load a few different ones a little bit later. So we have continuous, and then the main difference is our line weight is going to change. We're going to set that to 0.7. And I'm just going to keep making my new layers. So this is going to be my center layer. And it's all the same except for my line weight is 0.35. And I'm just going to keep setting up my layers. Construction layer. Now, our construction layer is like our guidelines. The main difference is this is going to be the only one that we don't want to print or plot. I'm going to set it to index color number 3, continuous, and 0.3 line weight. So then I have my cutting plane. Cutting plane. White. I'm going to make this a phantom, so I'm going to find phantom line, and I'm going to make sure to select that and click OK. And that's going to be 0.7 as well. Dimension. Continuous line, 0.35. A hidden line we're going to set to index color number 1, continuous 0.5. object. Our object lines are going to be the lines that we use the most. 0.6. Section. And text. So again, the only one that we have printing set off is our construction layer. We have a phantom line for a cutting plane line, and as I'm checking this, we needed to make sure that our center line uses a center line as well. So I'm going to select center. Okay. So my center line has a center line type, cutting plane has a phantom line type, and then I have a few various line weights. So those are the only things we're changing. Notice everything in my viewport is unfrozen, and all of my light bulbs, all my suns, locks are all left the way they were in default. Take a moment now, pause the video if you're not at this point. Now I'm going to start by making sure I'm in my border layer. And I'm going to draw a 10.5 by 8-inch rectangle. So this is going to be the border along the outside of my paper. So I'm going to grab my line. My border is going to be 1/2 inch tall. And I'm going to segment this for all of my different title block sections. So I'm going to go 1/2 inch over. Notice you can see now I have a line there. The next is going to be where our name goes. I'm going to make this 3.5, then 3 inches, 1 inch, 1 inch, 3/4, and that should leave me, the last section should be about 3/4. So I'm just going to use that last section. Now, as I had my tool, you can see there's different symbols that are popping up. Specifically, I'll be looking for these green squares. Those are my endpoint snaps. So check out the video about O-snaps if yours aren't showing up what you need them to show up. But I'm going to divide these up. So I have my DDE number, my name, title, ratio, date, class period, and drawing number. Now those are all going to be in my border layer. If I highlight them, they should all be in the same layer. If they're not in the border layer, let's say for instance you drew them in your construction layer, I'm just going to highlight everything and change it to my border layer. Now, I do want my construction layer to be my active layer because we're going to draw some guidelines to help us layer our text. So I'm going to use my line tool. And I'm just going to draw a zigzag going corner to corner from each of these boxes. So I'm just going to, and it's okay that my line tool stays active, but I'm just going corner to corner because the midpoint of each of these lines is going to be the midpoint of each box. Now, I want all of this to go into my Layout 1 tab. This is the only time we're going to be copying and pasting from our Model tab to our Layout 1 tab. So I'm going to select this all. Now, I'm not actively clicking, it's everything selected, and I'm going to type copy base, C-O-P-Y-B-A-S-E, copy base, and press enter. Now, it's really important that you're reading what AutoCAD is asking you. So it says specify base point. So I'm going to click this bottom left corner because when I place it, it's going to be based on that location. So now I copied it. I'm going to come over to my Layout 1 tab. Now, if this is the first time you're working with your AutoCAD template, we are going to delete this current viewport. And we'll explain what that is in a little bit. So I'm going to paste clip. And now it wants me to click somewhere, but I'm going to default it to this bottom left corner. So I'm going to say 0, 0, enter. And that's going to snap it right to this corner in my page. Now I am just looking here. Remember how I was off just a little bit for this to be 3/4? I'm looking here. My vertical line wasn't actually vertical. So I'm going to go back and fix that for 1 second. Thank you for holding with me. So that did make my numbers add up. So if you look now, this is exactly 0.5, and my last one is at exactly 0.75. So I was a little bit off before. If the numbers aren't quite right, that's a good sign that something needs to happen in order to fix that. So now, what I have are these lines on essentially a piece of paper. Now that I have them, I'm going to go ahead and delete the one drawn in my model space. So now I only have the lines drawn on my piece of paper. And right here you can see I'm in my paper space. So I'm going to start and grab my text, and I'm just going to triple click, 1, 2, 3, rather quickly. And I'm just going to write title. Now, you should see right now, there's an error. My text is in my construction layer. So I'm going to move that to my text layer. So everything's the right color, everything's the right line weight. With that text selected, I'm going to type TJUST, which stands for Text Justify. Now, sometimes you'll get a pop-up, mine's not working right now, along with your cursor, but I'm just reading along here. I'm looking for MC, or middle center. That's changing the location of this base point. So now I can grab this, and it'll snap to that midpoint of those lines. So I'm going to snap that right here, because this is where my title goes. Doesn't matter, we're going to duplicate this into multiple sections of our title block. So I'm going to grab copy. Now it says specify base point. I'm going to grab the midpoint of my line. Now it was snapping to it, but there was a lot of other things. I can also force AutoCAD to grab my midpoint. And I'm just going to type mid. And that's going to allow me to easily grab that midpoint there. And I'm just going to copy that to the midpoints of all the other lines. Now, in this first section, this is going to be your DDE number. Just like with our hand drawings, we'll have name. And we're going to do last comma first. Title. Ratio. Date. Class number. And this is going to be our drawing number. Now, your DDE number is going to fit because you have a number in DDE. So let's say my number is 25. So your DDE number doesn't change. You will always be DDE number 25 in our class. So I would type that right into your portfolio. Same thing with your name. I would take this, and then we're going to leave it in all caps. I do Edith, comma, Rachel. If you have a really long name, just like with our hand drawing, it's okay if you do last name, first initial. I know that mine's going to fit, so I'm going to put last name, first name. I don't know the title of every drawing. That's going to change for every drawing, so I want to leave that in my template. Ratio is going to change. Date is going to change. Class number is going to be something that's consistent. So if you're here period 8 or period 7 or period 6, you're seeing where I'm going with this. Whatever period number you have the DDE class, that you should just put right into your template, because that's going to stay the same. Your DDE number is the same, your name, and your period number. What's going to change is the title, ratio, date, and drawing number. Now, you don't need to change the font because the drawing number doesn't exactly fit into this space. Because when you're putting in what drawing number it is, you're going to say number 1, number 2, number 3, and it will fit into the space, but we're just going to leave it as drawing number for our template. Just going to put these back. I like to use caps lock when I'm doing this, so I don't have to worry about pressing and holding shift. So last name, obviously I turned it off, last name, comma, first name. Now, we're not quite done with our template, but we're almost done. Now, if I were to draw something over here in my model space, I use my object layer. Let's set this to object. I'm going to draw anything. Let's say I wanted to draw something like this. I can't see it over here. So what we need to do is add a viewport. So I'm going to type VPORT. Stands for viewport. And you're going to get this pop-up. I'm not changing anything. I'm just going to click OK. And I'm going to grab this top corner of my border and the top border corner of my title block down here. And that's going to open up a viewport, so then I can see and manipulate and interact with what's in my model space right here. It's a viewport into my model space. I can toggle between my model space and my paper space by clicking model versus paper. I can double click out here to switch back into paper space. I can type MS for model space or PS for paper space. There's a lot of different ways to get back and forth in between the two. Now, I don't actually want these circles drawn into my title block, so this is how I'm going to leave my template. So we need to save it as a template. Now, when I opened my first drawing, or my drawing, I didn't realize that it was starting it as a drawing, and that's okay. But we need it to be that .dwt. So I'm going to click here, save as, and it's going to want to save as a drawing. I'm going to change this to an AutoCAD drawing template. Now, this looks like where we should save it. This is where all of the automatic templates are housed. If I look at the file location or the location of this folder, it's on this desktop. I want to make sure that I save my template to my DDE folder in my U drive. So I'm going to go to my U drive, DDE, and I made a folder for AutoCAD. So I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to put in EDIC template. I'm actually going to add in a 1, a 0, 0, EDIC template. That 0 should be whatever period number you are in. 0 EDIC template. So I know what period I'm looking for, whose it is, and what it is. File name is very important. So period, name, template. I'm actually going to put, I'm going to use our edict just like your logins for school are your first initial last name or first name last name. However your school login is, that's what I'm using as this identifier. So I have period number, my school login, and then template. And I'm going to save this. If you get this pop-up, I'm going to click OK. I'm just going to save this. Now, up here you can see it says 0, my REDIC template, and a drawing template, or .dwt. So I had just closed my template. So we want to close our template. And you'll see it shows up here. I can see the difference between my drawing template icon and my drawing icon. We're going to create a drawing, even though we're not going to save it. It's just so we can print it out to make sure that our template is set and our line properties are set up. So I'm going to click New, and I'm going to click this drop down and say Browse Templates. Rather than choosing one of the templates here, I'm going to select the template that I just created. So I'm going to go DDE, AutoCAD, my 0 REDIC template, and I'm going to open that. Now, it just created a new drawing. You can see up here, drawing3.dwg. From here on out, all of our files are going to be drawing files. .dwg. So I'm going to come over here into my model space, and I'm going to draw a 5-inch line. So you can either click the button line or you can type L, enter. I'm going to start my line, and I'm going to make sure it's 5 inches. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see that. I'm going to offset, so I can click the offset, I can type offset. Now it wants me to specify my offset distance. I'm going to use 0.5, and I'm going to make, you gotta click on the line, a few copies of this line. I think that's enough. If not, we can always come back and move them. So right now, all of my lines are in my object layer, but I want each line to be in a separate layer. So I'm going to have my border layer, my border line, center line, construction, cutting plane, dimension, hidden, object. I gotta add another line. So this is my object. Like section and text. Now I'm going to label each of these. So I'm going to grab my text just like I did before, triple click. This is going to be in all capital. This is going to be my border, and I'm just going to copy these. Specify my base point. Select my object, specify my base point, and I'm just going to copy these to the end of each line. And I want it to stay, my text just to that top left-hand corner. I'm going to label them. Center, construction, cutting plane, dimension, hidden, object, section, and text. Now I have each of my line types. I'm going to come over into layout 1. And I can't actually, they're not visible in my viewport. So I'm going to open my viewport and I'm going to click my magnifying glass. That's going to zoom extents. That's going to show me everything in my drawing. And I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to set my scale 1:1. From here, I don't need to save my drawing, but I'm going to print my drawing. I'm going to go briefly through printing. If yours doesn't look quite right when you go to print, make sure you check out the video about print settings. So I'm going to click Control P for print, select my printer. Now if you watch the print settings video on the YouTube channel, you should be able to apply this to your template so that way you don't have to change these settings every time. So I'm going to click Preview to make sure that everything looks the way I want it to, and then I'm going to click OK so that way everything prints, and I have that. This is the only drawing where we're not going to save it. This was just a check so that way we can make sure that our print settings and all of our layers are set up.